go. It's good there.
That broadcast.
This is Lansing Online News Radio. I'm Bonnie Buckaroo. This is LCC Radio 89.7 WLNZ here in Lansing, Michigan on one of the first warm days that I've been enjoying myself. I'm soon to be joined by my co-host Bill Castanier. Good to see you, Bill.
Hello, hello.
Hello. So what do you have to report these days? Any news on the horizon?
I have a stupid little bird that's trying to live in my house.
Which kind?
I don't know. It's the kind that sits and makes little pecking noises.
Oh, God.
Not a woodpecker.
No, we have woodpeckers that love our cedar home.
I hate them. It's a flicker.
I'll bet it is.
They are a nuisance.
They are a nuisance.
Is it against the law to shoot a bird in the city, even with a BB gun?
I have no idea.
Be rather inhumane.
I don't care. Put a hole in my house.
Well,
I, on the other hand, will be doing a hard time in stir once my husband discovers
The bunny?
that, yeah, I put up this, had him spend the entire weekend putting up this orange traffic type fence, plastic type fence to keep the bunnies out of the hoop house, right? 26 by 36 foot hoop house. And then I found out apparently bunnies aren't going to care. They're going to gnaw their way right through that in about 2 minutes. No, once he put in all that work, he's never going to speak to me.
It'll keep the deer out, probably.
I know it'll scare the deer, but the deer haven't been a problem. It's the little miserable bunny foo-foos that come in there every night.
Isn't there a coyote urine thing that you can get
Fox
to
urine. I just ordered fox urine granules tonight, even as we speak, and I'm having them rush to my door in the hope that this works.
How would you like to own the business that collects fox urine?
In order to sell. My hunch is it's probably phony. It's probably made out of, mothballs or something. And that's really hard to get their little legs apart to get to.
I cannot believe people are doing fox. But you're right. It's probably some sort of artificial.
Yeah. But I've got to because, oh God, I mean, it was blazing sun. What happens in the hoop house, is the first time you get a nice day, it goes to 100 inside there. So Drew is busy putting up all the fence around the interior. And if it doesn't work, he's not going to be happy with me that I didn't do enough research in advance. Mm-hmm.
Probably shouldn't have said this on the radio.
Good thing is, I can always count on the fact he doesn't listen.
Someone will tell him.
Except for tonight was the first night that he decided to tune in, right?
The rabbits are listening.
I announced on Facebook that it would be the closing of the endless salad bar at the Buckaroo Ranch, but apparently not. And I put out all this stuff, so they're just probably going to mow me down by the time I get home.
Plus other things I'll eat it. Woodchucks. It's pretty hard to keep critters out of your space.
Couldn't I, what is the next step? Chicken coop wire?
Probably.
Oh, God. Oh, boy.
It's ugly.
So
Yeah.
I think Bill should just let the flicker move into his house. That's what I think.
And I should let the bunnies into the hoop house.
You should share.
Learn to live with nature.
That's right.
Does that mean I can eat them when I'm finished?
No.
Oh, no, it doesn't? Okay. They're tiny little birds. They make...
Well, then it's not.
They're
a
little
flicker.
bunnies, too.
It might
They
be a
could be a
nuthatch then.
Okay.
What color is it?
Grayish.
Yeah, it's a nuthatch. Flickers are bright yellow. With
Oh, no, it's not a flicker. So you can tell I don't pay attention to birds. I don't feed them. I like them
Well,
outside.
maybe if you fed them, they wouldn't attack your house.
There's that. You might put a feeder out there and see if that
Put a
would
suet feeder out there.
Yeah, keep them happy.
Squirrels like those?
I'm not sure.
Suet, of course.
Oh, okay. Then, it would be there. It'd be like 1,000 squirrels.
Well, no, you can get a squirrel guard.
This is getting too complex. This is way too complex. I've kept the deer out of my yard by fish line.
Oh,
It works.
it does. I
Yeah.
know. Yeah.
I don't until a tree falls on it. But it works. They don't go across fish line. They touch it and don't know what it is, and they're not running. So
I have deer repellent. It has a scent on it. These are little zappers that you put around your garden, and they have an electrical charge at the end. And if it makes a circuit, it'll zap them in the nose. And they put a scent on that deer like. They come up once, they get their nose zapped, and then they don't come back.
what? Is that legal?
Yes. Well, if they got the little zapper collars for dogs, it's okay for deer. It's basically the same idea, only it gets them on the nose once.
When we talk with the garden people in a couple of weeks, we should talk about all the gimracks that you can buy and manufacture to keep animals out of your gardens.
Well, I did want to let people know that that disembodied voice that we actually didn't introduce yet is Todd Haywood, reporter for the American Independent News Network. And the one thing I did want to talk about before we get into the meat of this evening's show was that Todd was there last Thursday night, wasn't it Thursday night? when Robin
Yeah, it was
was
Thursday
in.
night.
Robin Marty came in with her new book that she's co-authored called Crow After Roe, which is all about the legal actions that have been taken since Roe v. Wade was passed. And it was really, I thought, quite a good evening. I mean, it was an interesting discussion. And one of the interesting challenges I thought that came up was the idea that the secular community has maybe not done as good a job of providing the kind of community-based services that we would like to see, the sort of wraparound services that people need. And one of the reasons that the religious community has been so strong on these issues is because they do have that religious community that serves a lot of community needs. And your confrere Ed Brayton was there, and
Yes.
he's eager to get something started.
He is. In fact, he posted something on Facebook this weekend talking about that. And as you know, he's a huge leader in the atheist community.
Yeah.
And so this is important to him. He really does believe that you have to live your values, and so he wants to take those humanist values that he has and push them out into a larger construct. And I think that's great. And anytime we're doing better for the community, I'm totally okay for it.
Exactly. I thought it was a good discussion. It was very interesting, and it's going to be. Let's hope it's not as quite as long a hot summer as it was the last time. Eve Ensler's coming back. Is that
Yeah,
right?
she's going to be in Detroit in Southfield at Planned Parenthood.
Okay.
So that was very smart of them to grab onto her.
Yeah.
She has a book too, a memoir.
Oh, she does.
Which
Yeah,
I
it just
guess
came out.
pretty grim.
Oh, really? Why is that? I mean,
Child abuse when she was young.
ah.
It's a pretty grim book, I guess.
So will she be talking about that there, or is that a separate tour?
No, she'll be talking about her book, I bet. I mean, she's being paid to go around and talk about her book. That's probably what she'll do. You know, authors like to sell their books.
Well, the only other thing really of note was that we made it through graduation. Everybody got through graduation. You had hoped to see Richard Ford, got a review that he did well, but you didn't get a chance to see him.
No, I didn't get a chance to see him. I had to go out of town because my mother's ill. That was a really great disappointment for me because I'd set it up and I wanted to see how it worked out. But everybody that was there said he did a great job. He's going to be back June 9th and 10th. And there's going to be an opportunity, I think, to shoot him in the archives, MSU Special Collections.
Are you talking about NRA people, or?
I was going to say,
I knew they had their
you've already brought up shooting birds.
Video.
Today,
Yeah,
so.
that's a good point. It's on my mind.
Okay.
Video.
Yes.
Video him.
We did have the NRA meeting over the weekend. That was quite spectacular.
That's an understatement.
Yeah, it is growing further and further right. I mean, I do remember when there used to be actual Democrats that would show up there, but not anymore. It's become an arm of the Republican Party. But the two parties have purified to a degree. I mean, over the years. There used to be the Dixiecrats who were quite right, and they've disappeared from the party, so I'm not sure that's all that much of a surprise. But, ooh, death. We've seen those grim cases of the little 5-year-old who had his cricket rifle shoot his 2-year-old sister, and now a teenage boy apparently who shot his younger sister today. So, I mean, we're just hearing more of this, I guess.
But, you know, the coroners in those cases have both said that these were unforeseeable accidents, just tragedies that couldn't have been avoided.
Right.
Because the last time I checked, we're all born with guns in our hands, and
Loaded.
sometimes they just go off.
Loaded guns, yeah.
And the 5-year-old had his little junior cricket rifle. And if you go to their website, you'll see they sell them in pink and blue.
Yes.
Because the idea is that you should get a rifle into the kids' hands by the age of 5 so that they can grow up with guns. God, it's just astounding to me. It just seems it shouldn't even be legal.
Well, did you see the thing from Think Progress about the marketing to women at NRA?
Ah, yes.
Very sexualized women, gun holsters in the bras, and the pink AK-47s and M16s, and like, you know, the women that I know that are gun carriers, none of this would attract them to what's going on, and the women that I know that aren't gun carriers would be repelled by all of this. So
there is an audience so far where they wouldn't be selling them.
Well, Chris Hayes tried to have a thoughtful conversation last week on his show on NBC called All In. That's 8. I like the show. And he was talking about gun culture, but this isn't really gun culture. This is gun fetish. This is a different level. This is fetishizing guns. I mean, I know people who grew up hunting, and it's part of the whole culture. That's a different kind of thing to me. This is really, you know, when you're getting into, you know, little holsters in the bra and little derringers and all that kind of stuff, that's completely sexualizing and fetishizing guns.
well, and I think some of the posters that they showed that were, you know, sort of mock-ups of the Marilyn Monroe standing over the grate sort of image.
Yeah.
You know, girls with M16s with the hair blowing back. it's all about sexualizing the weapon and the woman and objectifying them. It was really kind
It's
of
creepy.
troubling to see it. Yeah.
It's creepy. Hmm. Well, we're going to shift gears here, and we're actually going to, I mean, it's somewhat a similar discussion because we're going to talk about the post-Boston bombing aftermath, and we're joined by Mohammed Mabrouk, who is the Imam of the Islamic Center in East Lansing, and we're happy to have you this evening. Greetings.
Welcome.
Thank you for having me, Bon.
And we are
Appreciate it.
concerned about the seeming backlash that your community faces after every time there is an incident like this. I think we worry about what's happening with your community and how have you had any blowback in the community here in East Lansing that has caused concern?
Particularly in our community, we haven't really seen anything.
That's good.
But I've actually have received a few phone calls when I was sitting in my office earlier. After the tragedy had happened, people saying that we were not going to judge a whole religion based upon the acts of two individuals, which I thought was really cool. But I think we received support more than anything. But yeah, no backlash so far. But one thing I mean that I've seen happen is that through the media and through other social outlets is that people often judge a whole religion based upon the actions of a few individuals.
Yeah.
Or if that was the case, then every race or every culture would be guilty of something, which a lot of people are starting to turn away from that and really starting to inquire about Islam and seeing what a beautiful religion Islam is, rather than being upset with it.
Well, it's a concern because we've seen after other incidents where some of our elected leaders, I mean, there's now talk about slowing down the immigration bill as a result
Yeah.
because of the idea that we want to make sure that we keep people out. I think it's, sort of fanning those flames again. It looked like we were on the verge of being able to have immigration reform for the first time in a long time. That discussion looked like it was moving forward. I don't think that the NRA helped over the weekend as well because a lot of that rhetoric was fanned there as well. That I mean, I saw the Wayne LaPierre speech where he talked about how if you were quaking in your home in fear in Boston, and I think about how, if you live in an urban area, the amount of violence that there is every evening is such that, we don't see armed tanks going down the street and people quaking in fear in their homes. These were basically two young guys, and yes, they had unfortunately put together some bombs, which was obviously of concern, but I mean, the idea that people needed to be armed in their homes, at that level, I just think that it's exploitation is what it really is. It's holding you up as the other and making people afraid.
Yeah.
What kinds of things can the community do to counteract that? What kinds of activities and what kinds of outreach can you do to ensure that people have greater understanding?
Yeah, I mean, as far as outreach programs, I mean, the Islamic Center does provide monthly classes, and we've actually been involved a lot with the interfaith group, and we actually just had the ABCs of Judaism about a month ago. Yeah, and so we rotate every quarter, and each religious site religious site takes it upon themselves to just give the fundamentals of Islam or the fundamentals of whatever religion they're presenting. Uh, um, but I mean, my advice is to people is that they should really reach out rather than be quick to judge. Yeah.
We've seen the new Pope make an outreach to the Muslim community, which caused some consternation among some of his church elders.
Yeah.
So do you think we're moving into a more ecumenical era overall where there's going to be a greater level of understanding that people, maybe this time we won't overreact?
Yeah. I think we are. I mean, if you see after what happened with 9/11, the number of converts to Islam greatly increased because of the inquiries they had.
Really?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I didn't know that.
Since 1990, I believe the Muslim population was about 1.1 billion in the world, and now it's shot up to about 2.2 billion.
Wow, that's a huge increase.
Yeah, and these are numbers that have increased. I mean, due to the activities that have been happening. But I just want to say that Islam in no way, shape, or form condemns such act. Islam.
No, you said it the way you didn't mean to say it.
Yeah.
You said that you did not condemn it.
Or condone such acts. I'm sorry about that. I'm sorry about that.
Yeah.
Condone such acts.
You'd make real news if you.
Yeah, we'd all
The
be in
wrong
trouble.
kind of news.
No, I'm sorry. I
Yeah.
meant to say condone
Yeah.
such acts.
Right.
Completely against such violence. Even in the Quran, it says that if a person kills another innocent soul, it's as if he's killed all of mankind. And this is how much we value a life in Islam.
This is LCC Radio, WLNZ 89.7 here in Lansing, Michigan. We're talking with Mohammed Mabrouk, and he's the Imam of the Islamic Center in East Lansing, and we're talking about some of the challenges that the communities face. I mean, part of the real challenge nowadays is a rising tide of fundamentalism and extremism that occurs in all religions and in all politics too as well. There is a small subset, and what's changed, I think, in a lot of ways, is that the internet has made this more available to a broader group of people. I think back, and when I look at my students now at MSU, freshmen come in 18, 19 years old, and I mean, they have so much to learn in such a short period of time, everything from learning whatever career field they're going to go into, just to how to balance a checkbook and how to handle money and do all of this, that it's unfortunately easy, I think, for people to get sort of down a rabbit hole with this kind of information. There's that kind of information available on the web, and it appears that these two young men, for the most part, just self-radicalized based on what was on the internet. They really weren't trained by any organized group, or this is at least as near as we can tell.
I was going to say, and I apologize if I'm stepping on your toes, one of the first things that rang across my mind when I saw the bombing was this was domestic. This was not tied to a foreign event. Because
it seemed more
destruction
like
of the bomb. Well, because of the construction of the bomb, where it was located, where it was placed, this didn't seem like what we'd seen in traditional sort of attacks on that we label terrorism. It was not meant as or wasn't carried out as a plan to do mass killing, at least the way it was structured. But I'm kind of curious. What was your first thought when the phone started ringing?
To be honest, we were actually sitting at the mosque and we were having just a regular board meeting, and I remember a lot of the the board members saying, we hope they're not Muslim. We hope they're not Muslim. That was the first thing that came to our mind. But one of the first things we did was we prayed for the victims, and our thoughts and prayers do go out to them and their families. But like I said, like you said, these are individuals who came up with this themselves. They weren't really attached to any or affiliated with any groups.
Todd and I have spent time with the militia movement, both of us.
Yes, we have.
More time than we probably. Todd and I go to strange places separately but together. And there's an extremist group that has, and they can, because of their isolation in many cases, they're more rural, so they're more isolated. But when people come to this country, I think we're facing maybe a discussion that they've had in England, which is when you have people come from other cultures, how do you make sure that you integrate and that you maintain conversation? I'm very concerned that that maybe we're not doing enough of an outreach to make sure.
From a history standpoint, this whole process goes back hundreds of years.
Oh yeah.
Because of the anarchists and so it's not new.
No. And we've never actually really been able to solve that.
No.
How do we help integration construct itself?
Assimilation. Which model should we follow? The assimilation model or the multicultural model?
And I think a lot of it also, we have to take some responsibility on those, or the people immigrating here also have to take a responsibility on themselves to actually reach out. Because what I've seen in a lot of mosques and in a lot of communities is that you have these people immigrated here and stick to their culture, stick with their own group of people rather than reaching out. So I think both parties need to sort of reach out to each other and make that happen.
I looked at both of my grandmothers who came over from Lithuania. They would have grown up about 20 miles apart. Their two children would never have been allowed to marry in that culture because my father's mother came from the peasant class, and my mother's mother was the daughter of the mayor of Vilna, which was the capital. So they came here, and both grandmothers ended up divorcing alcoholic husbands and doing house cleaning for people and cleaning in downtown office buildings in Cleveland. And so it was a great melting pot. But one really reached out and learned English and became part of a broader community, and the other one just stayed with a circle of friends in her home community. It is difficult sometimes for people to to get out and interact.
It is, and I've seen this a lot. I mean, coming back to what I said earlier, just culturally sticking to their own group of people and not really reaching out. And I feel like it takes, both sides to really reach out.
I'm kind of worried right now just because of the volatility in the Middle East. I'm concerned we may be literally on the brink of war with Syria or getting more engaged in that conflict than we have been in the past. Syria now has announced that as a result of the two bombings that the Israelis conducted over the weekend, that they're now at war, and so I don't know really what that means.
Yeah. Um, to be honest, as a religious imam here in America, I try to focus on the politics here within this country. Which I mean, as far as information wise, I don't have too much information regarding what had happened. But our prayers and thoughts go out to the innocent souls that were lost with the bombings that happened.
President Obama kind of got himself in a little bit of a
Conflict zone?
yeah, because of he said if they used chemical
his
weapons, yeah.
But the problem is that the British this weekend said, and the UN said, actually we think it was the rebels that used the sarin gas.
Yeah. And usually
So-
when that kind of weapon is used, when a poison gas is used, we're talking about hundreds or thousands of people killed quickly. 14 or 15, that's a very different ballgame.
Yeah.
And you'd have to question whether that's really the crossing of the kind of bright line, I think, because, I mean, one good drone could take out 20 people, so I don't know why all of a sudden, just because it is that chemical, it might make a difference. I think Obama is going to wish he hadn't said that.
Yeah.
Oh, I think he does now.
Yeah.
But I think we're far from that being the precipitator. I think the Israeli strikes in Syria are really what's going to drive us
that was
further
serious
into it.
business, yeah.
But of course, I mean, the way in which we've reacted indicates that we fully supported and knew about them before they took place.
Oh, I absolutely have no
Probably
question.
did.
Israel wouldn't have done it if we.
One would hope.
They wouldn't have done it. There's too much money at stake. So I would say that we were complicit at the very least.
We don't need another war in the Middle East. That wouldn't
No.
be good for anyone's community. I mean, the last thing we need is another conflict. We have to figure out how to get out of the remaining conflicts that we're engaged in.
I was actually going to loop back with another question for
Oh,
you,
yeah.
and that was, you talk about the immigration community needing to reach out. How easy is it to reach out? I mean, Bonnie and Bill and I are sort of the white folks wandering around Lansing, so we don't have any of the constructs that you may be running into. So
Yeah.
talk a little bit about.
I mean, you start with the language barrier.
Yeah.
First they start thinking that, oh, I don't speak the same language. I don't walk the walk or talk the talk, as they say, as the people in this culture do. So I'm just going to keep to myself. But and then you have the different cultures in regards to clothes and the way they speak and the way they eat, the way they greet each other, the way they conduct themselves, completely different. So they face all these different challenges, and what ends up happening is that they say, you know what, let's just stick to our own kind. We don't really want to mix with anybody, and we'll kind of just do us. But I feel that if anybody wants to make anything happen, it's on them, and it's on them to take the first step with that. They could easily go to the library, introduce themselves, or even the mosque. We do a lot of community service and a lot of volunteer work. I just recently got in contact with Safe Haven and Loaves and Fishes, and when they come to these kind of events, it allows them to mix with the people and talk with different cultures and get a feel for different cultures and slowly start integrating with the culture.
You have an open house every year as well, don't you?
Yes,
I went
we
to
do.
one of those, and it was really delightful. I mean,
Yeah.
boy, I ate my way through the entire cafeteria there, and I mean, it was everything from getting to see artworks and jewelry and
Yeah.
videos in places, and you could have henna done on your hands and all
yeah.
kinds of interesting things.
Yeah.
And an opportunity.
It's not that different. I mean, it certainly is different in a way, but the Chinese students at MSU
I
have
worry about
really
them
ghettoized
also.
themselves.
Yeah.
They're going through a similar experience.
Yeah,
They
it's
don't speak the
difficult.
language well. They culture is totally different. So they live all together in either dorms or apartments. So they don't reach out. They eat at the same restaurants.
But I guess that takes me back to the question of what are we doing as a culture
Yeah,
Right.
exactly.
to address that? And I do think, I mean, yeah, you have to step outside your own cultural construct, but we have an obligation as the community to
Right.
also be open and welcoming. And my guess is there's probably some experiences there that reinforce that. Let me separate from this culture.
Yeah.
So the question is, how do we begin to have those conversations to step across those?
Well, I was glad to see that there was apparently a resolution facilitated that down in Dearborn they have an annual festival,
Yeah.
and there had been some people from a Christian sect, I recall
Acts.
them. Yeah.
Yeah.
And they were trying to hand out literature, and they were removed by the police, and it was quite a foo-fra, and they were aggrieved, and there was a lot of consternation. But there've now been an apology. There's been, I mean, everybody's gotten together, and I'm hoping that's a step forward, that we're not seeing those kinds of clashes take place anymore.
Um, I think, like I said, since 9/11 and since a lot of these horrific tragedies that have taken place, people have been a little bit more open-minded and really inquiring rather than judging, which is a positive for both ends. We learn from it, and the people inquiring also learn from it. Uh, yeah.
I wonder what strategies, though, if you, I'll ask you this time, what strategies do we have to deal with extremism across the board in all cultures? I mean, that's a challenge everywhere. I was, when we were talking about what we might talk about tonight, I was talking to Mohammed about my concerns about what's happening in Bangladesh, where they're trying to, there's a group that is really pushing to pass a law that would ban blasphemy. It would be sort of an anti-free speech kind of thing. And I think we're facing similar pressures here, where people would like to have things criminalized and like to change the mores in our culture and make us a more religiously based society.
You know what a lot of people don't realize is that in order for anyone or for a Muslim to follow the Sharia law, there has to be some sort of Sharia ruling. But the Sharia also tells us that we have to respect the rules of the land that we live in. So you can't really follow Sharia if the land doesn't permit you, and that's where a lot of people get confused. But as far as what's happening over there, even with recently the building that capsized, I think 386 souls.
Oh, that was terrible.
Yeah, and once again our prayers go out to them. But yeah, in order for you to really instill Sharia, there has to be some sort of Sharia ruling. And if that's not taking place, by law in Islam, you have to respect the rules of the land.
Well, I mean, there have always been church rules and church laws. I mean, I went to school with the young in Burton, Ohio, with Amish kids, and they were forced to drop out of school at the 8th grade, even though the state said that you should go longer. And quite honestly, in that era, the state of Ohio just turned a blind eye and let the kids drop out. But the kids who wanted to stay risked being shunned by their own communities. Their community had rules. I mean, we've always had communities that have their own religious sanctions on the community. It isn't something that's enforced by the broader law. But there does seem to be a very deep level of paranoia in this culture that somehow Sharia law is looming, and we're all going to be under Sharia law. You want to give us some assurances here that that's not the case?
Once again, this all comes back to inquiring before you judge, or inquiring before you come to some sort of conclusion. I can assure you, as long as the rules of this land don't change, I don't see Sharia law being instilled.
Dave Ajema, are you listening? Dave Ajema, are you listening?
No, he's up at the Republican National Committee these days, isn't he? Still,
Yeah.
I mean, he moved up the ranks.
Yeah, but he's pushing it through RNC now.
Oh, absolutely.
So
absolutely.
you know who Dave Ajema is, I assume.
He's the representative here in Michigan that held a series of
trying
to pass legislation.
Yes, I remember.
To ensure we wouldn't fall
No
under
foreign laws.
No foreign laws.
Which ironically was so broad that any biblical construct would have also become
right.
Foreign.
Because the Bible is foreign to the United States, technically.
I went to the meeting that they held across from the Capitol, and they had a couple hundred people in the room, and the paranoia was really thick. I mean, these people were terrified. They were just persuaded that that they were going to, any day now, wake up and find out that they were under a new legal system, and that President Obama was part of the plot to make that happen as well. So I don't know, you must
Well,
still
he-
run into a
He
few.
wanted to take all their ammunition too.
The
Remember
Homeland
that?
Security is busy
You cannot buy
buying it all.
ammunition right now anywhere.
What's really happened, of course, is that this paranoia whipped up on the right means that gun sales and ammunition sales have gone through the roof. That's the reason for the shortage.
That's
Oh,
really
I
the
see.
reason why the economy is improving, actually. So it's actually
It's got
Obama's
it.
secret economic plan.
When you go to estate sales and there'll be 5 or 6 guys asking about ammunition. It's pretty unusual.
Well, Mohammed, what's coming up at the mosque this summer? What kind of activities do you have that the community might be able to partake of?
Yeah, I just got here about 2, 3 weeks back from San Diego.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, I just took this position.
This
about
is
2,
new
3
for you,
weeks.
isn't
Yes,
it?
yes,
Yeah.
it is. It is.
Whoa,
So
quite
yours
a
is-
change.
Yeah, I was actually.
We have winter.
We hate to tell you about that.
Yeah. I was actually born and raised in Detroit till I was about 12.
Oh, okay, you know
well, then
winter.
you know winter.
And then I moved out to Arizona, and then I took my first imam position in San Diego, California, and now I'm back here. But I am planning a series of volunteer events as far as the youth, a series of classes regarding the adults and whatever subjects they would like to cover.
I go to your
So-
website frequently, and
Yeah.
you post a lot of information there. I've been to a number of events there.
Yeah.
They had the Irvine 11 in talking about the
Yeah, I
experiences
remember.
that
I
they had.
actually met them all in California.
Did you?
when
I wondered
yeah,
about
I met
that.
them, I met them all. I'm very close friends with actually one of the Irvine 11. Yes,
How are they doing?
they're doing very good, very
Yeah.
good. It's a slow and steady process, but they're doing good. They're doing good.
I think things have eased. I don't feel the same level of paranoia in the culture after Boston that I did by a long shot.
No, it's a
And
very different response, I think.
I think so too. So I'm much more hopeful that we won't
Yeah.
see the kinds of activities that we did in the past. And I'm very hopeful we'll see more of you in the future and
Yeah,
get to
thank
know you better.
Yes, thank you so much for having me.
Well,
Bonnie.
thank
I really,
you.
really appreciate being here. Thank
I
you.
think-
Welcome back to Michigan.
Yes,
Thank
yeah.
you, thank
By the way,
you.
I've got to ask you before you leave.
Yes.
So, have you been back to Detroit since you've been gone?
Yes, I came back in 2011, and
What did you think? Did the city look at all the way you remembered?
no, it looks.
I mean, as kids, sometimes when we go back to the place we grew up, it looks different anyway.
Yeah.
No,
But
I
I
mean,
would think it had to be quite a jolt, I would think.
it was. I felt like I was in a whole other country. To be honest, everything is foreclosed. Everything is just shut down, and but my best wishes to the city of Detroit.
Boy, it has been struggling. I know. I went down there a few years ago, and I drove in on Grand River all the way
Yeah.
just to see what it would look like, and hung a video camera outside the car. And I mean, trees growing up through buildings and things. That's a clue that the property's not doing well.
Yeah.
So it's been a huge difference, I would think. So, what were you have fond memory? What school did you go to in Detroit?
I went to actually an Islamic school known as Dar al-Arqam at the time, but it's changed now to I believe Rising Academy or something like that, Star Academy.
Huh?
I'm not sure. I drove by it actually 2, 3 weeks back, just kind of reminiscing in the past. And
Was your family home still there?
Yeah, actually, my grandmother still lives on the south end of Detroit, along with my uncles, and I have an uncle also lives in Canton. But I try to stay closer to Canton. Yeah, but
Well, it's good to have you back.
thank you so much
Thank
for
you.
having me.
We'll hope to talk with you again soon. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
There's I have done Google Maps to take a look at the home where I grew up in Cleveland, and I was showing there's Arcade Fire has a nice little song with a special website where you could put in the address of the place you grew up, and it'll take you in there, and it's quite dramatic. It's really quite interesting. And as they were zeroing in on my house in the city, I was saying to my students, I'd say, "Oh, and that's where the woman was murdered." When I walked out of my bedroom, see the kids go, "Huh? What?" And they
No
said,
wonder she's crazy.
"This is where little Rainey lived, and he's the one that took the gun to school and shot our teacher." And I was like, "Huh? What?" Not quite the same neighborhood they came out of, I don't believe. Yes, some city neighborhoods have changed.
I think that's maybe a discussion we could have at some time. This is the changing culture of the university and who comes now.
It is interesting.
Big difference even from when I went. It's you got kids from
Much more affluent.
much more affluent.
Yeah,
When I started, it makes sense. The demographics were almost everyone there was the first person to have gone through college.
right.
It was a big difference.
They're not firsters anymore.
No, not by any means.
And I think we're seeing that demographic going to the community colleges, honestly.
Right,
Yeah,
everybody's
you're right,
moved up a
Doc, you're
notch.
right, yeah,
Everybody's
you're right.
moved up a notch. I got in the elevator the other day, and I looked over, and there was this young woman, and she had a Coach handbag, and I know what those cost, right? And I was carrying my $2.50 backpack from Meyer, which was, remaindered because it had skulls on it. I'm going, what's wrong with this picture? Not quite the same neighborhoods that I grew up in.
But
Yeah.
universities just tend to ignore that, don't they? I mean,
Well, we've had talks about that in the department. We've talked about how do we ensure that we don't just become sort of like an elitist private school?
Mhm.
How do we make sure that we show these kids a broader world on the one hand, and how do we try to facilitate and make sure that if we can identify kids in high school that are talented, that we could get them here? I mean, what are the mechanisms for that to happen?
well, one of the things Richard Ford told me when I asked him, I said, well, what was the first thing you noticed when you came to MSU? Because you're from the deep south, Jackson, Mississippi.
Yeah.
He said, well, I had African American kids in class with me for the first time ever.
Yeah.
And there was all kinds of people who had unusual surnames.
Yeah.
It was just, for him, it was just night and day.
Yeah. Yeah.
And now I don't see that many African Americans. I see.
They've had great
Certainly more
difficulty.
change.
A lot of the schools in Detroit are just not very good
Yeah.
schools. They have, the money just isn't available to do what needs to be done. They've had that eroding tax base down there for so long. That's really put a bite on their school system. Makes it harder for those kids to be prepared to come. It really is worrisome, and we had some outreach people who tried to make a difference with that, but it's kind of a drop in the bucket. I mean, it's going to take greater societal changes than that. And I don't think the skunk works that the governor is hosting
Got caught.
Yeah, they got caught. Although, Todd, we want to sort of shift gears into. Todd came here with he's been doing a little tour lately. You've been touring code enforcement.
Yes, our friends at Code Compliance are back on the ride.
Looking only though at neighborhoods that we would call sort of.
I would say that they're going after the lower income areas.
Mm-hmm.
I live in a neighborhood that is sort of targeted for FEMA dollars to make our houses go away because we're in a floodplain.
Yes.
And the city has been trying to buy those houses, but is significantly underbidding. The last house that they made an offer on was a house that was valued at about $65,000. They offered them $9,000 for it.
Oh.
And that's what they've been doing across the board. So they're having problems getting people to buy.
Yeah.
So what we're suddenly seeing is code compliance popping up. And you've got sticks in your yard. I've got a lot that's it's 75 feet deep, and it's got 6 full-grown pine trees on it and a couple of maple trees. I'm going to have sticks in my yard. I'm sorry, it's
I'm rushing home. I got a few sticks in my yard.
We went from winter snow to
Yep.
summer in about 48 hours, so
Yep.
they didn't give you much of a window to deal with it either.
In fact, the first real warm day that we had was the day after I got my notice from code compliance that I had sticks in my yard. And there was also some
winter. It really was winter.
Well,
Yeah,
it was, but I went out and I picked up sticks and whatnot, and I thought, well, this is kind of ridiculous that I'm picking up sticks from a wooded lot in my own property, which, by the way, is surrounded by a privacy fence. But okay, I'll do this. But
what if you decided to do your yard in early stick? Couldn't you do your yard in sticks?
Why can't you leave sticks in your yard?
Well, evidently they feel that that's a health and safety threat. So I decided.
Had you sharpened the ends
Yeah, I
on
mean,
these?
I had not.
He's been shaking sticks at public
Little
officials.
punji.
In fact, the closest thing I might see them as a danger is Gobo tripping over them when he
Yeah.
picks them up. But even he's too clumsy to actually cause any damage with them. But I decided, because sometimes I get a little obnoxious, I decided I'd take a tour of some of our local parks and see what we had there.
Yeah.
And wouldn't you be surprised? But there's a lot of sticks in the parks in the city of Lansing.
Surprise.
Especially the park by my house, which they naturalized. There's a lot
Right.
of deadfalls.
Yeah. Well, Hunter Park.
Which I like.
Yeah, but they're dangerous.
Well, true.
Yeah, I mean, because people are still walking there.
Yeah.
Hunter Park is not a naturalized park.
No, not at all.
But there are logs that are 7 or 8 foot long, tree limbs that are a good 8 inches thick, and where's the ticket for the city for
Yeah.
that? There's garbage strewn across them.
Could you
No
issue them a
tickets.
ticket and start making back a little?
Well, I I did jokingly send a notice to the city council
Ah, I see.
with photos attached.
I'm sure they were amused.
8 by 10
Actually, the council
color
members found it very.
photographs.
The council found it funny. But I think it does speak to a larger issue, is if you're going to be a government entity and you're going to say you have to stick to these rules, then you better be sticking to those rules too. And if that means that sticks shouldn't be in somebody's yard, then they shouldn't be in our parks either.
Yeah.
And I'm not trying to be a pain.
I could see.
I take that back. I am trying to be a pain.
I could see
True,
old
but,
cars but sticks.
Well, you know,
Sticks
Oh, you
is
can't do old cars at
well,
all.
you know, I mean,
No.
here's the thing: is that like, you know, the paint on my house is beginning to peel. It's unappealing. It looks ugly.
I've
I
got a
get
bird
that.
hole in the front of mine.
Well, you know what?
I don't
If-
call them, okay, tomorrow.
They're probably listening. But because the paint is peeling on my house, the city can say,
Yeah.
that's an imminent threat to your safety.
Right. How? I don't know. But
Well, they say that it allows the weather into my house. I'm like, well, believe me,
So
even
it
when
does
it's
when I open
painted,
the
I still
door.
have lots of draft.
right.
So the hole in your house
Yeah.
could in fact get you in trouble.
Yeah, it could.
And I think
One
that-
day the bird puts a hole in it
Except-
and makes a nest.
except in all fairness, Bill, you're in an area of the city
Hmm.
where they're not going to come give you problems
That's right.
because you have enough income that they don't care.
It's the two-tiered policing.
Yes.
I try to
Absolutely.
point out to my students, when was the last time you saw ninja-clad police with a big battering ram come into one of the dorms and start busting down doors? I mean, we know that there are drugs on
Drugs on
campus,
campus.
but that's not treated the same way. It's a two-tiered policing system. It's a two-tiered code enforcement system. And one of the things I guess that has always bothered me is code enforcement is, it's such a powerful weapon.
That's a huge
And it has
risk.
been used as a weapon
It has.
a lot.
It has, and it's designed to. I mean, at any given home, they could always find something out of
Yep.
compliance, and it's the same sort of thing that restaurants face. If you somehow cross the wrong person, you always worry that you're going to be singled out. We're not supposed to face that kind of specific,
Well, what
retribution,
what
but
was-
I'm always worried.
What was interesting in this is that, I got a notice, the neighbor 2 houses up got a notice because they had sticks in their yard as well. But the property to my south, which is owned by the county, by the land bank, had a stack of brush about 4.5 foot tall and about 10 foot long. They still don't have a notice.
Yeah.
Now, I've given Eric a notice. I took pictures and sent them to him.
That's pretty
Um,
selective enforcement, isn't
yeah,
it?
it
You're
is.
absolutely right.
Yeah.
And again, I don't have a problem with code compliance. I actually like the idea of code compliance.
Hmm.
What I'd like, though, is come knock on my door.
Right.
Come say, hey, here's something that I noticed. Let's have a talk about it. Let's figure out how we can fix this together. Instead of you sneakily coming by my property, writing up something, going back to your office and mailing me a notice.
Yeah.
That doesn't facilitate a working relationship with me.
Well, one other topic I wanted to touch on briefly was community policing, because what we used to do with community policing was that the officers would try to recruit kids in the neighborhood, and they would do a big, clean up, paint up, fix up over the weekend. The kids would stop at the door and say, would you like us to paint your front door? We've got some donated paint. We could do it a nice color pick one and help you pick up the sticks, especially if somebody needed to borrow a lawnmower to, because a lot of times if you're in a low-income neighborhood, I mean, I remember that the two things I could never afford in the many years I was poor was a vacuum cleaner. If it didn't come with the apartment, I was in trouble because I could never afford one of those, and a lawnmower.
Yep.
I mean, and so really, rather than just harass people, let's find community ways that we can solve these kind of problems. Keep a lawnmower in a little shed down at the local storefront office that the cop stops into.
Well, and to sort of add on to that, unfortunately, which makes it worse, is that since the budget cuts happened and because of the budget crisis, code compliance officers can't even go to the community meetings anymore, to the neighborhood meetings,
Oh.
unless they do it on their own time.
Oh, no.
So we're asking them to volunteer to go into neighborhood meetings where, frankly, they're probably going to meet some hostility.
Yeah.
So the partnership that had been developing, particularly in my neighborhood with the code compliance officers, is gone because we took that ability to build those relationships, to build those bridges away from them. And as we're moving into budget times right now, I would hope that the mayor and the city council would take some looks at how do we make sure that we can fund our code compliance officers to participate in neighborhood organization meetings
And not worry about
Rebuild.
sticks.
and not worry about sticks.
Yeah. Yeah, that
Or-
seems a bit petty.
or garbage bags that are city of garbage bags that are sitting on my porch.
Mm.
They're fully intact.
Yeah, sort of.
So what am I supposed to do with the garbage
Right.
between pickup days? Am I supposed to keep it in my house where my dogs see a closed bag as an
Oh.
imminent threat?
Yeah.
Must rip open to look for bombs.
Yes, it does make life exciting.
They got better things to do, really, in this city.
Well, just driving up and down my street, there are two houses. One house, since I bought my house on Fairview, there's one house on it that has been red tagged since I bought my house in 2001.
Oh no, that long.
And the roof is collapsing in on it. They've done nothing with that property. That property ends up with, waist high grass before the city finally gets out to cut it. There's another house that's a little further up that has been red tagged, and I think they may have had a meth operation going on in there because there's now a warning notice on the door. There's trees that have fallen down all over that property. There's nothing done with that. And yet, those of us who are actually paying and contributing to the community,
Right.
we're getting notices for picking up sticks. Oh, and by the way, now that they've issued this one letter, in the next calendar year, if they issue me another letter, I automatically have to pay the city $75.
Ooh.
Oh.
Ooh, because you are automatically considered out of compliance. You had to have a second warning.
Well, no, because it's to prevent you from supposedly having any more violations.
Oh.
And really, what it's designed to do is to punish anybody who gets a second notice.
Mm.
Well, unfortunately, I'm pretty sure I'm going to get another notice about grass or sticks, probably.
Sticks?
And then I'm going to have to pay the city $75. Well, what happens if you don't pay it? If you don't pay it, it goes onto your tax bill.
Yes.
And if you don't pay it on your tax bill,
They can take your house.
they can take your house.
Yes.
So what are they doing? They're setting up this area that they want to take all these properties.
For next to nothing.
Yeah.
They're setting them up for tax foreclosures. That's really what I think is going on.
Well, I'm glad you brought that to us. We're going to have to keep an eye on that one. But we.
You know, another one that's sort of in the same vein, but it's not city, is Dennis Preston having to take down all his little monsters from,
His little napkins.
from Bigby's.
It's our brilliant cartoonist who's been doing
Yeah,
those.
I didn't know about
They
that.
were already
Bigby's,
taken down, and all the Bigby's. He's posted online.
Why?
He hasn't learned
He's
yet.
not sure yet.
Corporate.
It appears it may be corporate descending. We are becoming a really uptight culture. No sticks in the yard, no cartoons at the Big B's.
It's a tough world out
It's
there.
a tough world out there.
Sticks in your
This is LCC Radio, WLNZ 89.7 here in Lansing, Michigan. We're talking with Todd Haywood, and we're now joined by Ray Camelly. Ray, come and join us.
Do you have any sticks in your
Yeah.
No sticks, no.
Now, what about your community? Are you facing those kinds of issues?
I live in East Lansing. I lived in Lansing for many years. I own 2 homes in Lansing, and actually completely rehabbed both those homes over the course of their
Good.
lives.
Yeah.
My guess to what you were talking about is that the city can get you to comply a lot more cheaply than an absentee landlord who owns the wrecked house in
Exactly.
the first place.
Exactly.
And they can probably get you to do something because you already have a stake in the property. Whereas the abandoned property, it's obvious that they have a lot of obstacles ahead of them if they're trying to go after an absentee landlord who's just been neglectful.
Well, I'd much rather they spend my tax dollars going after the neglectful landlord personally. And like I said, my issue isn't necessarily that code compliance is there. My issue is that we need to develop relationships. And code compliance isn't empowered to come knock on my door and say, hey, I'm your code compliance officer. I just want to let you know the sticks in your yard, that's a problem. Which, by the way, sticks in the yard is not a problem. It's natural, last time I checked. But that way you could start facilitating an actual conversation.
It's not the kind of government people really want, and that's what ticks off people about government.
Yeah.
All those little things add up at some point.
Yeah.
Now, if they cite me for the piece of my lawn that's dead,
They're
which
in
is
big
at the
trouble.
curb, I mean,
It's their fault, right?
You're not going, why did it die? I don't know. Salt?
Ray, you're here to talk about an event that you're putting together. You want to tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. Well, it's not me personally. It's Lansing Community College. And they've kind of decided to get into the cultural excursion business.
Yeah.
And I think that, I've been playing guitar around here for many years, and I teach guitar at LCC. That's not a big surprise. But I kind of got roped into being the kind of guiding light as to what the cultural experiences should be.
Oh, you have input into that?
They
Whoa.
actually said, "Yeah, can you tell us what a good symphony orchestra is? Can you tell us what a good Irish band is?" And I said, "Sure, I can do that."
Yeah.
And so they said, "Well, why don't you just go ahead and think of some things that would be a blast
Wow.
that you would really want to do yourself?"
What power?
Yeah.
Well, I didn't say no. And so this year I've planned 3 trips for them, and the first one's coming up very soon, May 17th, 18th, and 19th. We're doing a 3-day, 2-night trip to the Shaw Theatre Festival in Niagara Falls, Canada.
Wow.
And there's some very nice things that LCC can do to make it easy to do that. And it's part of a greater effort to widen their offerings to people, especially above 50 years old.
Oh, really?
What they
That's your
call plus
target
50,
audience?
right? And well, anybody can sign up for the cultural excursions, but LCC has a big push on job retraining,
Oh, I
because lots of people have retired or been made obsolete
Right.
from their jobs,
Outsourced.
and or not even that so much as now that their office skills are not up to the modern office. So LCC has a big push for that kind of training, especially for older people. I mean, computer for the complete idiot, if you know what I mean. And but also efforts for giving back to the community too, because there's plenty of retirees who want to have a way of contributing to community groups, and so LCC's included that, and also fun things. I mean, all of this is part of a broader approach to basically include the people that are, I think, above 55 years old is 27% of the population in Lansing.
That's the boomers. We're going through the culture like a watermelon through a snake.
Yeah.
That's us.
And it's essentially a constituency that hasn't been served by the community college, or not nearly as much as it could be.
Huh.
It's also
So-
the constituency that votes.
Well,
Yeah,
yeah.
usually.
Well, that's for sure.
I was
Yeah.
just going to ask,
But they
what's
have
the
money.
return on investment?
They have money.
The return on this investment, you mean from LCC's point of view, or what do you
For
mean?
this whole program, the return on investment? Since all the programs here at LCC are evaluated on return on investment, I'm actually joking.
Okay, sorry, because I
Don't
really wasn't sure how to answer.
I do find it interesting, as somebody who's been involved in LCC and LCC's development over the years, that we eliminated a lot of those community offerings about 10 years ago because we weren't getting a return on our investment.
Right.
And now suddenly we're returning back to focusing on them. I think it's great that we're doing that. But
This is
I find it
basically for
frustrating.
boomers, yeah.
Yeah.
And but I just wanted to make clear that this is George Bernard and not Artie we're talking about. At the
Then
show.
that's right, that's right.
Because for my generation, it could be either one. So.
Yeah, sure.
So what kind of things are we going on at the festival?
Well, the festival is not unlike the Stratford Festival, except the focus is not Shakespeare, it's George Bernard Shaw. And so theater goes on constantly there,
Oh.
really 5, 6, 7 days a week, depending on the season and the height of the season. I think they're offering about 9 or 10 different plays. So we'll attend 2 performances, but we'll also be at Niagara Falls, so we're going to try to put, besides taking in 2 performances, we'll have some activities around the falls, which has wine country, which has the biggest maybe tourist trap in North America, but rightfully so. I mean, Niagara
Honeymoon
Falls.
destination, as they always say.
I'll tell you,
It is a
I'm-
young woman's second biggest disappointment.
Is that the falls, or is that the other thing you're talking about?
She's rare. She's rare tonight.
She's definitely there tonight.
Niagara Falls.
I do have friends who they never got a honeymoon, and they are at Niagara Falls as we speak. 40 years later, having their first honeymoon together at Niagara Falls. So that's kind of cool.
Yeah.
They're going to go to the Ripley's Museum.
Oh, they do have that, don't they?
Yeah,
they do.
yeah. Two-headed
Yeah.
cows, things like that.
I got to tell you, the Shaw Festival, though, as a theater geek, Shaw Festival is one of the best
primo.
theater festivals in North America.
It's,
it
it absolutely
it's
is.
profoundly good theater. I mean, it's much like Broadway in terms of professional theater, but in a really quaint setting. Niagara on the Lake is just a beautiful little town. And you could just spend the whole time just ambling around in that place if you wanted to.
What are the other two events?
The other two, first weekend of October, we're doing a fall color tour of Michigan, starting with the Art Prize in Grand Rapids. It's kind of a, God color, man color type thing, or person color. I mean art, the art. The nature of the trees is God's painting.
I see.
But we're also we'll start with the Art Prize, spend the night in Grand Rapids, then go to Meyer Garden, then hit the trail up the west side of the state to Traverse City. That night, we're still working out the details. We'll probably attend a concert. I might actually be involved in that, but we'll see. Then on Sunday, we go to the wineries out on the peninsula. Of course, the peninsula is about as nice in fall color season as there is in the whole of the United States. And then we get back to East Lansing by about 6 at night, something like that.
How large group can you accommodate with this?
Up to 55.
Up to, okay.
That's it's LCC buses. We have our choices.
Oh.
That's the only limiting factor.
Oh, cool, because I don't like to drive, so that would be cool.
And then the third event is the first weekend of November, and it's a Chicago Blues Cruise.
Oh.
And we'll attend 3 big clubs. Kingston Mines on Friday night, Buddy Guy's Legends on Saturday night, and then Sunday afternoon we will attend the International House of Blues Gospel Buffet.
Those are special places.
And,
Buddy Guy's still alive.
Yeah. Well, you might as well.
Is Kingston Mine where you switch from one side of the
Yeah,
to the other?
the music is
Yeah.
constant. The music really starts about 6 in the evening and goes till about 4 in the morning.
Yeah.
We won't be there the whole time.
Oh, yeah.
Why not?
So you hope.
Well, my guess is there will be some attrition.
Yeah.
But or falling by the wayside, I guess you might call
Oh,
it.
God, that'll be great.
Sure. And then we'll have some kind of Saturday afternoon expedition for whoever wants to leave their hotel, basically.
Now, is there a website or something that people can go to find out about all this?
I had to ask. Yes.
Yeah, I had to ask. Yeah.
Well, first of all, you can sign up by calling LCC at 483-1860. It's all this stuff. I can't read it.
Let me see.
Is there anything recognizable?
Oh, my goodness, the URL for the website is about 800.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Which never has to be.
It
Frank.
shouldn't be.
But no,
I think the Google machine might be your best bet.
Yeah, go to the LCC website, and I'm supposed
What's
to
the
know
title of the program?
LCC.edu is the LCC
Continuing /technical/certifications.
website.
That
No,
can't be
don't
it.
even try it.
No.
Use their search engine. Their search engine is
Okay.
not bad.
Yeah, put in the Shaw Festival.
Yeah,
Shaw
Shaw Festival
Festival,
should
yeah,
do it.
that'll
I
get
think
you
it's
to it.
53153 is the course number. And anybody can sign up for this. There's no registration fees or anything like
cool.
that. It's a non-credit course. But it's based on double occupancy, so there's got to be 2 of you. You want there to be 2 of you, or else it costs more.
I see. Or you could clone yourself.
Lots of
Get
thought.
a volunteer.
It would still cost more.
Or you
'Cause if
could be
you're
the
cloning
Pope
yourself.
and just use the miracle of bilocation.
Now, you said that because we will see those people who are watching our webcast on Lansing Online News, that you have brought your guitar with you, and you might be willing to give us a preview of the blues.
Yeah, I have to show my blues credentials. Don't I?
Yes.
Here's my
Will
calling
you give
card.
us a little intro to the song so we know?
Sure, this is from Mance Lipscomb. Listen here, baby, what I'm going to say to you. Want you to know, I got them bye-bye blues. That time is the right time to be with the one you love, the one you love. When you're out late at night, Mama, I can't rest. Come on, fool, I ain't, honey. And baby, won't I guess. That time is the right time to be with the one you love, the one you love. Grab my hat this morning, she followed me to the door. She said, goodbye, Daddy, I hate to see you go. That time is the right time. Been with the one you love, the one you love.
You've been listening to LCC Radio, WLNZ 89.7 here in Lansing, Michigan, Lansing Online News Radio. We'll see everybody next Monday night at 7 o'clock. Thank you very much, and tune in again. Thanks to Ray Camely, Mohammed Mabrouk, and to Todd Haywood, and my co-host Bill Castanier.
Gorgeous. You got to give the people what they want, whether they like it or not.
My husband